Welcome to the channel. I know many of you listen to these videos to relax or fall asleep, and I'm really glad you're here. Before we start today's crime stories, please take a moment to subscribe if you haven't already. And if there's any crime story you'd like me to narrate for you, feel free to request it in the comment section. Now let's begin. Story 1. Mary Bell was born in Newcastle upon Tyne, England. Her mother, Betty, was only 17 years old when Mary was born. Betty worked as a prostitute. She was often absent from the family home. She would frequently travel to another city, Glasgow, for work. When she left, she would leave her children behind. The man Mary believed was her father was named Billy Bell. He married Betty when Mary was a baby. Billy Bell was often violent and drank too much alcohol. He had a history of being arrested for crimes. It is not certain if he was Mary's actual biological father. Mary was an unwanted child. Her mother did not show her love. Shortly after Mary was born, her mother did not want to hold her. She told the hospital staff to take the baby away. Mary's childhood was marked by neglect and strange accidents when she was alone with her mother. When Mary was very young, her mother dropped her from a first-floor window. On another occasion, her mother gave her too many sleeping pills. One time, Betty even arranged for another woman to adopt Mary. Mary's older sister had to go and bring Mary back home. Betty's family offered to take care of Mary, but Betty always refused. As Mary grew older, her mother's behavior became more disturbing. Betty had clients for her work. It is alleged that she allowed some of these men to sexually abuse Mary. Betty sometimes participated in these abusive sessions. Mary was hurt and confused by these experiences. At home and at school, Mary showed signs of being troubled. She had sudden changes in her mood. She wet her bed often, even as she got older. She fought with other children frequently. She would sometimes try to strangle or choke other children when she played with them. Once, she tried to block a young girl's throat with sand. This violent behavior made other children avoid her. By 1967, Mary spent most of her free time with a neighbor girl named Norma Bell. Norma was 13 years old. The two girls were not related, but they shared the same last name. They became close friends. At school, other children learned to watch Mary's behavior. They noticed she would sometimes get a certain look in her eyes. Her head would shake. When this happened, they knew she was about to become violent. The child she was staring at would usually be her target. In May 1968, when Mary was 10 years old, an incident happened. A 3-year-old boy was found hurt and bleeding. He said he had been playing with Mary and Norma on an old air raid shelter. He said one of them pushed him off the roof. He was not sure which girl did it. That same evening, the parents of 3 little girls complained. They said Mary and Norma had tried to strangle their children in a sand pit. The police spoke to both girls. They denied pushing the boy. About the strangling, Mary said she knew nothing. Norma, however, said that Mary had tried to choke the 3 girls. The police gave the girls a warning. Because they were so young, no further action was taken. Mary's life continued in this way. She lived in a poor area of the city where many old houses were being torn down. Children played in these empty, derelict buildings and on rubble-strewn lots. Mary and Norma played in these areas too. On May 25, 1968, the day before her 11th birthday, Mary Bell was playing in a deserted neighborhood. She entered a derelict house on St. Margaret's Road with a 4-year-old boy named Martin Brown. Norma Bell was not with her. Inside an upstairs room, Mary strangled Martin Brown. She did this with her hands. She then left the house. Later that afternoon, at about 3:30, 3 other children entered the same empty house. They found Martin lying on the floor in the bedroom. He was on his back with his arms above his head. There was a little blood and foam around his mouth, but no other obvious injuries. A local workman named John Hall came and tried to revive the boy, but it was no use. While John Hall was trying to help, Mary and Norma appeared at the bedroom door. They were told to go away. The two girls then went to the home of Martin Brown's aunt. They told her that one of her sister's children had an accident. They said they thought it was Martin, but they could not be sure because there was blood all over him. A doctor examined Martin's body the next day. He could not find a clear cause of death. There were no signs of poisoning or obvious violence. A few days later, an official inquiry returned an open verdict, meaning no one knew exactly how he died. The day after Martin died, on Mary's birthday, she and Norma broke into a nearby nursery school on Woodland Crescent. They got inside by removing tiles from the roof. Once inside, they caused a lot of damage. They tore books, turned over desks, and smeared ink and paint everywhere. When the nursery staff arrived the next morning, they found the vandalism. They also found 4 handwritten notes. The notes claimed responsibility for killing Martin Brown. One note said, "I murder so that I may come back." Another said, "We did murder Martine Brown, fuck if you bastard." The police saw the notes but thought they were a sick joke written by children. They did not connect them seriously to the crime. 2 days after Martin's funeral, Mary and Norma went to his mother's house. They asked if they could see Martin. His mother, June Brown, said they could not because he was dead. Mary replied that she knew he was dead and that she wanted to see him in his coffin. Nothing more happened for over 2 months. Then, on July 31st, 1968, a 3-year-old boy named Brian was playing outside his home. He was with his siblings, his dog, and with Mary and Norma Bell. Later, he did not come home. His family and neighbors searched for him. At 11:10 that night, a search party found his body on a large area of waste ground called the Tin Lizzie. His body was placed between 2 big concrete blocks. Someone had tried to hide it with grass and weeds. His lips were blue. There were bruises and scratches on his neck. A pair of broken scissors was lying near his feet. It was clear he had been strangled. Further examination showed more injuries. Small puncture wounds were on his legs. Some of his hair had been cut off. There were cuts on his genitals. A rough letter, M, had been scratched into the skin of his stomach. The person who killed him had used one hand to pinch his nose shut and the other hand to squeeze his throat. The force used was not great, suggesting the killer was another child. Fibers were found on Brian's clothes and shoes. They were gray and maroon colored. These fibers did not come from anything in Brian's own home. After Brian's body was found, the police began a large investigation. They spoke to many children in the area. On August 1st, officers talked to Mary and Norma. Both girls said they had played with Brian earlier that day, but had not seen him after lunch. Their stories were vague and did not match perfectly. The next day, the police spoke to Mary again. This time, she told a detailed story. She said she saw an 8-year-old local boy playing with Brian that afternoon. She said this boy was hitting Brian. She added that the boy had grass and weeds on him, and he was carrying a small pair of broken scissors. She said she saw him try to cut a cat's tail with them. This statement was important because the police had not told anyone about the broken scissors found at the scene. This made the police very suspicious of Mary. The police checked the story about the 8-year-old boy. They found he had been at the airport all afternoon with his parents. Many people confirmed this. He was not involved. On August 4th, Norma Bell's parents contacted the police. They said Norma wanted to tell what she knew. A detective went to their home. Norma said that Mary had shown her Brian's body. Norma said Mary demonstrated how she strangled Brian. Mary said she enjoyed it. Norma also said Mary used a razor blade to make the marks on Brian's stomach and had hidden the blade. Norma then led the police to the exact spot and showed them where the razor blade was hidden. Based on this, the police went to Mary's house in the early hours of August 5th. Mary became defensive. She told the detectives they were trying to brainwash her and that she would get a lawyer. Later that same day, Norma gave another statement. Now she said she was actually present when Mary killed Brian. She said Mary pushed Brian into the grass, seemed funny, and started to strangle him. Mary then told Norma, "My hands are getting thick. Take over." Norma said she then got scared and ran away, leaving Mary alone with Brian. The police took clothing from both girls. The gray fibers on Brian's body matched a wool dress belonging to Mary. The maroon fibers on his shoes matched a skirt belonging to Norma. The same gray fibers were also found on the body of Martin Brown. The police had strong physical evidence linking the girls to the crimes. On August 7, 1968, Brian Howe was buried. That evening, Mary Bell and Norma Bell were formally charged with his murder. When charged, Mary said, "That's all right by me." Norma cried and said she would pay them back for it. Mary later wrote a statement. She admitted being present when Brian Howe was killed, but said Norma was the one who strangled him. She also admitted that she and Norma had broken into the nursery and written the notes about Martin Brown's murder. Both girls were examined by psychiatrists. The doctors found Norma was intellectually delayed and easily led. They found Mary to be clever and cunning, with sudden mood swings. They concluded Mary had a psychopathic personality disorder. This meant she understood right from wrong, but had a severely abnormal mind that reduced her responsibility for her actions. The trial for the murders of Martin Brown and Brian Howe began on December 5, 1968. The judge allowed the media to publish the girls' names and photographs, even though they were children. Mary and Norma both pleaded not guilty. In court, the prosecutor said the girls had killed for the pleasure and excitement of it. He said Mary was the dominant one, but both were equally responsible. Fibers from Mary's dress were presented as evidence, linking her to both boys. Norma Bell testified first. She said she was not guilty of murder. She admitted she knew Mary liked violence, and that they had talked about hurting small children. She said she saw Mary strangle Brian Howe, but she did not stop her or call for help because she did not know what was going to happen. Mary Bell testified next. She cried during her testimony. She said she had found Martin Brown's body, but did not kill him. She said she and Norma asked to see his body at the funeral because they were daring each other. For Brian Howe's death, she said Norma was the killer. Mary claimed she tried to stop Norma but could not move, as if she was glued to the spot. Other witnesses were called. Norma's mother said she had once found Mary trying to strangle her younger daughter. A child psychiatrist said Norma had a low mental age, but knew right from wrong. The jury decided their verdicts on December 17th. They found Mary Bell not guilty of murder, but guilty of the manslaughter of both boys. They accepted that her disturbed mind meant she was not fully responsible. They found Norma Bell not guilty of all charges. Norma was set free. Mary was convicted. The judge said Mary was a dangerous person and a grave risk to other children. He said the public needed protection from her. He sentenced her to be detained at Her Majesty's pleasure. This was an indefinite prison sentence for someone so young. Mary Bell was sent to various secure centers and prisons for young people. In 1977, when she was in an open prison, she ran away with another inmate. She was caught a few days later after dyeing her hair and was returned to prison. She lost some privileges as punishment. Authorities worked to prepare her for release. In 1979, she was moved to an open prison and began working in a cafe under supervision. She was released in May 1980 at age 23. She was given a new identity and the legal right to anonymity, so she could live a normal life without people knowing who she was. For years later, Mary Bell had a daughter. Her daughter did not know about her mother's past. In 1998, a newspaper discovered where Bell was living and published her new name. This forced Bell and her teenage daughter to flee their home and move to a secret location with police help. In 2003, Bell went to the High Court. She won a permanent order that granted her and her daughter lifelong anonymity. This meant it became illegal for anyone to publish information that could reveal who they were or where they lived. This protection was later extended to her granddaughter. Mary Bell has never denied her crimes. She has said that the abuse she suffered as a child does not excuse what she did. She has lived the rest of her life out of the public eye under her secret identity. The legal system ensured her punishment as a child, her rehabilitation, and her permanent right to live privately as an adult. Story 2. Brenda Ann Spencer was born on April 3, 1962, in San Diego, California, USA. She was the youngest of 3 children. Her parents were Wallace Spencer and Dorothy Spencer. The family lived in the San Diego area. When Brenda was 9 years old, her parents' marriage ended. Her mother, Dorothy, discovered that Wallace was having relationships with other women. Dorothy filed for divorce in January 1972. After the separation, Brenda lived with her father. Life with her father was difficult. They were very poor. They lived in a small house at 5368 Lake Atlan Avenue. This house was directly across the street from Grover Cleveland Elementary School. Inside the house, it was often messy. There were many empty bottles from alcoholic drinks. Brenda and her father slept on a single mattress on the living room floor. Brenda attended Patrick Henry High School. She was not interested in most school subjects. She often appeared tired or disinterested in class. One teacher remembered frequently having to ask if she was awake. However, Brenda did have one talent. She enjoyed photography. She once won first place in a photography contest run by the Humane Society. Her social life was limited. Other students often found her strange or unsettling. Some classmates described her as crazy and said they were scared of her. She expressed strong dislike for police officers. She called them pigs. She would sometimes say she wanted to hurt police officers. She also talked about wanting to do something big to get on television. Brenda had problems with skipping school. Because of this, she was sent to a special facility for students with attendance issues. In the summer of 1978, staff at that facility told her parents that Brenda had talked about suicide. They were worried about her mental state. That same summer, Brenda was in trouble with the law. She was arrested for burglary. She had broken into Grover Cleveland Elementary School, the school across from her house. There were also reports that she used a BB gun to shoot out windows at the school. She was put on probation for these crimes. In December 1978, while she was still on probation, a professional evaluated Brenda's mental health. This evaluation was arranged by her probation officer. The professional said Brenda was depressed. The professional recommended that Brenda be placed in a hospital for mental health treatment. Her father, Wallace Spencer, refused to allow this. For Christmas in 1978, her father gave her a present. The present was a Ruger 10 of 22 semi-automatic rifle. It was a .22 caliber rifle. It came with a telescopic sight. He also gave her 500 bullets for the rifle. Later, Brenda would say, "I asked for a radio and got a rifle." On the morning of Monday, January 29, 1979, Brenda Spencer was inside her house. She looked out the window at Grover Cleveland Elementary School across the street. It was just before 9 a.m. Children were gathering outside the school fence, waiting for the principal to open the gate. Brenda picked up the .22 caliber rifle her father had given her for Christmas. She loaded it with bullets. She opened a window of her house. She pointed the rifle at the school children. She began to shoot. The first person she hit was a 9-year-old boy named Cam Miller. She later said she chose him first because he was wearing the color blue, which was her favorite color. The boy was injured. Then, she continued firing at the other children. In total, 8 children were shot and wounded. The school principal, a 53-year-old man named Burton Ragg, heard the gunshots. He ran outside to help the children. A teacher named Darrell Barnes also ran out to help. As Principal Ragg tried to open the gate to let the children to safety, Brenda shot him. He fell to the ground and died. The school custodian, a 56-year-old man named Mike Sucher, also ran to help. He tried to pull a wounded student to safety. Brenda shot him too. He was killed. A police officer named Robert Robb, aged 28, heard the emergency calls on his radio and drove to the school. As soon as he arrived and got out of his car, Brenda shot him. The bullet hit him in the neck. He was seriously wounded but survived. Brenda fired a total of 36 times from the window of her house. To stop her from shooting more people, the police moved a large garbage truck. They drove the truck so it was parked between Brenda's house and the school entrance. This blocked her view so she could not see or shoot at anyone else. After she stopped shooting, Brenda stayed inside her house. She barricaded the doors. The police surrounded the house. For several hours, there was a standoff. The police tried to talk her into coming out. During this time, a reporter from a local newspaper called the Evening Tribune was calling telephone numbers in the neighborhood, trying to get information. He accidentally called Brenda Spencer's house. Brenda answered the phone. She told the reporter that she was the person shooting. The reporter asked her why she did it. She replied, "I don't like Mondays. This livens up the day." When police negotiators spoke to her by phone, she said the people she shot were easy targets. She told the police she planned to come out shooting. The negotiators talked to her for a long time. Eventually, they promised they would bring her a meal from Burger King if she surrendered peacefully. After this promise, Brenda Spencer put down her rifle and walked out of the house. She was arrested by the waiting police officers. After Brenda Spencer was arrested outside her home, she was taken to the police station. The police collected the rifle and the remaining bullets from her house. They spoke to many witnesses, including the wounded children, the injured police officer, and the teacher who had helped. All of them described the same thing. The shots had come from the house across the street. Because Brenda was 16 years old, the legal system had to decide if she would be treated as a juvenile or an adult. The district attorney for San Diego County decided to charge her as an adult. This meant she would face the same court process and potential punishment as an older person. She was charged with 2 counts of murder for killing Principal Burton Ragg and custodian Mike Sucher. She was also charged with assault with a deadly weapon for the shootings of the 8 children and police officer Robert Robb. While she was in custody, medical tests were done. These tests showed that Brenda had an injury to part of her brain called the temporal lobe. Doctors believed this injury was from a past bicycle accident. In prison, she would later be diagnosed with epilepsy, a brain condition that can cause seizures, and she was given medication for this and for depression. Brenda Spencer did not go to a full trial. Instead, she pleaded guilty. This means she admitted in court that she had committed the crimes she was charged with. On April 4, 1980, one day after her 18th birthday, a judge sentenced her. The sentence was 25 years to life in prison for each murder, to be served at the same time. The assault charges were included in this sentence. Additional charges of attempted murder were dismissed as part of the plea agreement. This sentence meant she would be eligible for a parole hearing after serving 25 years. Brenda Spencer was sent to the California Institution for Women, a prison in Chino. Inside prison, she worked a job repairing electronic equipment. Over the many years that followed, she had several hearings to determine if she should be released on parole. The first parole hearing was in 1993. At this hearing, she said she had been using alcohol and drugs on the day of the shooting, though earlier tests at her arrest had not found drugs in her system. She also said she had hoped the police would shoot and kill her during the standoff. At a later parole hearing in 2001, she said for the first time that her father had physically and sexually abused her. Her father denied these claims. The parole board did not find her story believable because she had never mentioned it before in all her years of therapy and evaluations. The board also noted that she did not show enough remorse or understanding of her crime's impact. In 2005, a deputy district attorney argued against her release. He mentioned that Brenda had once harmed herself by carving words into her own skin. This showed ongoing mental health problems. In 2009, the parole board denied her release again and said she should not get another hearing for 10 years. Her most recent parole hearing was in February 2025. The board again decided she was not suitable for release. Her next chance for a parole hearing will be in 2028. After the shooting, Grover Cleveland Elementary School placed a plaque and a flagpole in memory of Principal Ragg and Custodian Sucher. The school was eventually closed in 1983 due to low numbers of students. The building was used by other schools for many years. In 2018, the old school building was torn down to build houses. The memorial plaque was moved to a corner of the property. The wounded police officer, Robert Robb, recovered from his neck injury. The children who were shot survived their wounds. One of these children, Christy Buell, was an adult when she heard about another school shooting at a different school named Grover Cleveland Elementary in 1989. She felt great sadness that such an event had happened again. Brenda Spencer's father, Wallace Spencer, died in February 2016. Brenda Spencer remains in prison at the California Institution for Women. Story 3. Kipland Philip Kinkle, known as Kip, was born on August 30th, 1982, in Springfield, Oregon. He was the second child of William and Faith Kinkle. His father, William, was a retired Spanish teacher. His mother, Faith, was also a Spanish teacher at a different high school. Kip had an older sister named Kristen, who was a very good student. The family was seen as normal and loving. When Kip was 6 years old, his family moved to Spain for 1 year because of his father's work. Kip attended a Spanish-speaking kindergarten there. His family later said he struggled with the schoolwork in Spain. When the family returned to Oregon, Kip went to an elementary school in the small community of Walterville. His teachers there thought he seemed young for his age. They said he was not as developed physically or emotionally as the other children. Because of this, his parents agreed with the teachers that Kip should repeat the first grade. During that repeated first grade year, Kip was diagnosed with dyslexia. Dyslexia is a learning disorder that makes reading difficult. This diagnosis led to him being placed in special education classes starting in the 2nd grade. These classes were meant to give him extra help with his schoolwork. From an early age, Kip showed a strong interest in weapons and explosives. When he became a teenager, this interest grew. He began making simple bombs using gasoline. He would take these bombs to a nearby quarry and blow them up. He later said this helped him release his anger. His father, William, was unsure about this interest at first. He wanted to discourage his son from violent things. But later, William changed his mind. He enrolled Kip in gun safety classes. He also bought Kip a 9mm Glock handgun and a .22 caliber rifle for his 15th birthday. William also gave Kip an old .22 rifle that he himself had gotten as a child. Kip's mother, Faith, did not like the guns at first. However, she agreed after the family psychologist said it was okay. Kip and his father used to go target shooting together near their home. At Thurston High School, other students saw Kip as strange. He often talked about violence. He told friends he wanted to join the army after high school to learn what it was like to kill someone. Once, on a family trip to Disneyland, he said he wanted to punch Mickey Mouse in the nose. For a speech in his class, he gave a presentation on how to make bombs. He also put foul-smelling stink bombs in other students' lockers. His parents saw that he had problems with anger. They took him to see a psychologist named Jeffrey Hicks. Kip saw this doctor for about 6 months. The psychologist diagnosed Kip with depression. Kip was given a prescription for a medicine called Prozac. After 8 weeks, Kip, his mother, and the doctor agreed he seemed better. They decided to stop the therapy sessions. Kip did not get more Prozac when his first prescription ran out in late 1997. During this time, Kip began to experience things that were not real. He believed the government had put a computer chip in his brain. He thought the Chinese army was going to invade the Oregon coast. He also heard voices in his head. He did not tell anyone about these voices because he was afraid. He was scared people would think he was crazy, or that girls would not like him, or that he would be put in a hospital. He tried to drown out the voices by listening to very loud music on his headphones or by riding his bicycle. On May 20th, 1998, Kip Kinkle was caught with a stolen gun at his high school. A friend had stolen the handgun from another person's father. The friend then sold the stolen gun to Kip for $110. Kip brought the gun to school in a paper bag and put it in his locker. The owner of the gun reported it stolen to the police and gave the police names of students who might have taken it. Kip's name was not on that list. However, the school officials heard a rumor and decided to question Kip. When they asked him about a weapon, Kip told the truth. He said the gun was in his locker. The school officials found the loaded gun. They suspended Kip from school immediately. The police were called and they arrested Kip. Later that day, Kip was released from police custody. His father, William, came to pick him up. During the car ride home, William Kinkle was very upset. He lectured his son about his actions. He told Kip that his behavior had to improve. He said that if it did not improve, they would send Kip to a military school. Kip later said the voices in his head were so loud during this car ride that he could not hear what his father was saying. When they arrived home, Kip went to his bedroom. He took his .22 caliber Ruger semi-automatic rifle from his room. He then went to his parents' bedroom and got ammunition for the rifle. He walked to the kitchen. His father was in the kitchen. Kip shot his father one time in the back of the head. His father died. Kip then dragged his father's body into a bathroom. He covered the body with a sheet. Kip waited in the house for his mother to come home from work. At about 6:30 in the evening, his mother, Faith, drove into the garage. Kip went into the garage to meet her. He told his mother that he loved her. He then shot her 6 times with the rifle. He shot her in the head, face, and heart. Faith Kinkle died. Kip dragged her body into the house and covered it with a sheet. Kip spent the night and the next morning alone in the house with his parents' bodies. He played a piece of opera music loudly and repeatedly on the family stereo. The music was from a movie he liked. He also wrote a note. He left the note on a coffee table. In the note, he wrote that he had embarrassed his parents by getting into trouble at school. He wrote that he had to kill people. He wrote about the voices in his head. On the morning of May 21st, Kip prepared to go to his school. He put on a long trench coat. Under the coat, he carried 5 weapons: 2 knives, his .22 rifle, a 9mm Glock pistol, and a .22 caliber Ruger pistol. He put over 1,000 rounds of ammunition in his coat pockets. He drove his mother's car to a street near Thurston High School. He parked and then walked the rest of the way. Kip entered the school campus through a patio area. He saw 2 students there. He raised his rifle and fired 2 shots. One student, a 16-year-old boy named Ben Walker, was hit and fell. The other student was also hit and wounded. Kip then walked down a hallway and entered the school cafeteria. The cafeteria was full of students eating breakfast. He walked across the room. As he walked, he fired his rifle again and again into the crowd. He shot 48 more bullets. He hit 24 more students. One of the students he hit was a 17-year-old boy named Michael Nicholson. Michael died in the cafeteria. Kip's rifle then ran out of ammunition. He stopped to try to reload it. While he was trying to put a new clip of bullets into the rifle, a wounded student named Jacob Riker tackled him. Several other students rushed to help Jacob Riker. They grabbed Kip and tried to hold him down. While they were struggling, Kip pulled out his Glock pistol from under his coat. He fired one shot from the pistol. This bullet hit Jacob Riker again, and also hit another student. Kip yelled at the students holding him, "Just kill me." The students did not kill him. They managed to take the guns away from him and held him on the floor until teachers and police arrived. The police officers arrested Kip at the scene. At the police station, the officers were searching Kip. They had not found a knife that was hidden in a sheath strapped to his leg. Kip pulled out this knife and lunged at a police officer. He screamed at the officer to shoot him. The officer did not shoot. Instead, the officer used pepper spray to subdue Kip and took the knife away. After the shooting, injured students were rushed to the hospital. Ben Walker, who was shot on the patio, died from his wounds at the hospital. Michael Nicholson had died at the school. In total, 2 students were killed and 25 others were wounded. Jacob Riker, the student who tackled Kip, was seriously injured by 2 gunshots, including one to the lung, but he survived and recovered from his injuries. The police investigation began immediately. Officers went to Kip Kinkle's home to inform his parents about the school shooting. When they arrived at the house, they heard loud opera music playing inside. No one answered the door. The officers entered the home and discovered the bodies of William and Faith Kinkle. They found the note Kip had written on the coffee table. This is how the police learned that Kip had killed his parents the day before the school shooting. Kip was held in jail after his arrest. He was placed on suicide watch, meaning guards checked on him very often to stop him from harming himself. He tried to refuse all food in an attempt to starve himself to death. He stopped this attempt when his sister, Kristen, came to visit him. She had to leave Oregon later to go back to college, but Kip did not try to starve himself again because he did not want to cause her more trouble. The legal process moved forward. Kip was charged with multiple counts of murder and attempted murder. His lawyers discussed using a defense that he was not guilty by reason of insanity. This defense would require a trial where doctors would testify about his mental illness. However, just 3 days before his trial was set to begin, Kip decided to plead guilty to all the charges. This meant he admitted in court that he committed the crimes. Before the judge decided on a sentence, a hearing was held. At this hearing, doctors who had examined Kip testified about his mental health. They said he had a serious brain disorder called paranoid schizophrenia. They explained that the voices he heard were symptoms of this illness. Kip also spoke in court. He apologized for killing his parents and for shooting the students at his school. In November 1999, the judge sentenced Kip Kinkle. Because he pleaded guilty to murder, the judge gave him a prison sentence of 111 years and 8 months. The sentence meant he would not be eligible for parole. He would likely spend the rest of his life in prison. Kip later tried to appeal his sentence. He said his lawyers should have used the insanity defense at a trial instead of letting him plead guilty. He also argued that his long sentence for a crime he committed as a teenager was unfair. The courts reviewed his case and denied his appeals. The original sentence was upheld, meaning it would stand. Kip Kinkle was first sent to a youth correctional facility. When he turned 25 years old, he was transferred to an adult prison, the Oregon State Correctional Institution in Salem. In prison, he was officially diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia and given antipsychotic medication to manage his condition. He earned his high school equivalency diploma and took some college classes. He also worked as an electrician's assistant within the prison. The community of Springfield and the victims were deeply affected. A memorial was built at Thurston High School with the names of Ben Walker and Michael Nicolausen. Many survivors of the shooting had lasting physical and emotional injuries. One wounded student, Anthony Case, was shot 4 times. His injuries changed his life path. He stopped playing sports and focused on academics, eventually earning a doctorate and working as a scientist. Kip Kinkle's sister, Kristen, lost her entire family. She has stated that she does not feel anger toward her brother because she believes his illness caused his actions. Some survivors believe that with better mental health treatment, the tragedy might have been prevented. Kip remains in prison, where he has said he continues to think about how his actions hurt so many people. The story of the Thurston High School shooting ended with the perpetrator incarcerated for life and a community forever changed by a single day of violence. Story 4. Eric Harris was born on April 9, 1981, in Wichita, Kansas. His father was a pilot in the United States Air Force. Because of his father's job, the family moved often. They lived in Ohio, Michigan, and New York during Eric's childhood. Eric had an older brother. The moves were difficult for Eric. He wrote in a school paper that leaving friends in New York was very hard. He said he felt alone and upset when he had to move. In 1993, when Eric was 12, his father retired from the military. The family then settled in Littleton, Colorado. Eric had a medical condition called pectus excavatum, which made his chest appear sunken. He had 2 surgeries as a young teenager to correct it. He was sometimes shy about taking his shirt off in gym class because of this. Eric started attending Ken Carroll Middle School in Colorado. There, he met another student named Dylan Klebold. Eric did normal things as a child. He played Little League baseball and went to friends' birthday parties. In his first years of high school at Columbine, he played on the soccer team. A teammate said Eric was a solid player who enjoyed the sport. Dylan Klebold was born on September 11, 1981, in Lakewood, Colorado. His family lived in the same area near Littleton. His father was a geophysicist, and his mother worked with people with disabilities. Dylan had an older brother. His parents described themselves as pacifists, meaning they believed in peace and were against violence. They attended a Lutheran church. As a young boy, Dylan was in the Cub Scouts. He was also in a program for gifted students because he was very bright. In middle school, Dylan was known for being extremely shy. He was quiet, and some people said he seemed uncomfortable in social situations. He had been friends with a boy named Brooks Brown since 1st grade. Dylan met Eric Harris in the 7th grade. Through Eric, he also became friends with another boy named Nathan Dykeman. The 3 boys spent a lot of time together. They shared interests in computers and video games. In high school, both Eric and Dylan had jobs together at a pizza restaurant. Eric was eventually put in charge of some shifts. They were both interested in technology. They helped with the school's computer network and worked on video production projects for classes. They also spent much of their free time playing violent video games on their home computers, which they connected to each other. Socially, the boys had a small group of friends, but were not part of the popular crowd. Some students later said that Eric and Dylan were sometimes picked on or bullied by other students, particularly by athletes. In his junior year, Eric asked a girl named Tiffany to a school dance. She went with him, but afterward did not want to spend more time with him. As a reaction, Eric once played a prank on her. He lay on the ground with fake blood on him, pretending to be dead to scare her. She was very upset and told him he needed psychological help. Dylan's personality seemed to change during his later high school years. People who knew him said he became more easily angered. He would sometimes have sudden outbursts of frustration. Despite this, just 3 days before the end of his senior year, Dylan went to his high school prom with a female friend. In January of 1998, when they were seniors, Eric and Dylan got into trouble with the law. They broke into a van and stole some electronic equipment. They were caught by the police. They were charged with theft and other crimes. They went into a diversion program for juveniles. This program included community service and counseling. They both completed the program early because they were cooperative. A report from the program said Eric was bright and likely to succeed. It said Dylan was smart but needed to learn about hard work. For a school video project in December 1998, Eric and Dylan made a movie called Hitmen for Hire. In the video, they pretended to be hired bullies who wore trench coats. They acted out scenes of walking through the school and pretending to shoot people with fake guns. Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold began planning a major attack in secret. In April 1998, shortly after they finished their court-ordered program for the van break-in, Eric started writing in a private journal. Dylan had begun his journal even earlier, in 1997. In these writings, they expressed anger and fantasies about revenge and violence. They wrote about causing a historic disaster that would be worse than the Oklahoma City bombing. They decided to carry out their attack at Columbine High School. Their original plan did not focus on shooting. Instead, their main idea was to use bombs. They wanted to cause explosions that would destroy the school and kill hundreds of people. Over the next 11 months, they worked on building explosive devices. They used information from the internet. They built many bombs using metal pipes, propane tanks, and carbon dioxide canisters. They tested some of these bombs in a nearby open space. They also made large bombs designed to start a fire in the school cafeteria. Because they were under 18 years old, they could not legally buy guns. In November 1998, they asked an 18-year-old friend from school, Robin Anderson, to buy guns for them. She went with them to a gun show and purchased a rifle and 2 shotguns for them. This is called a straw purchase, which is illegal. Later, they also bought a semi-automatic handgun from an acquaintance named Mark Maney's. Another man, Philip Duran, helped introduce them to Maney's. They sawed off the barrels of the shotguns to make them shorter and easier to hide. They collected a large amount of ammunition and explosive materials. They hid most of these items in their bedrooms. Eric's parents sometimes heard loud noises coming from the garage, but thought they were from tools. On the weekend before the attack, Eric and Dylan bought several large propane tanks from a hardware store. They used these to make their largest bombs. They chose April 20th, 1999, for their attack. It was a Tuesday. They made videotapes in Eric's basement, now known as the basement tapes, where they talked about their plans and their reasons. They said they wanted to be famous and punish people they felt had wronged them. They also said that no one could have stopped them. On the morning of April 20th, Eric and Dylan drove separately to Columbine High School. They brought 2 large duffel bags, each containing a 20-pound propane tank bomb. They placed these bags in the school cafeteria, setting the bombs to explode at 11:17 a.m. during the lunch period. They then returned to their cars in the parking lot to wait. Their plan was for the bombs to destroy the cafeteria, killing many students. They then planned to shoot survivors as they ran from the building. They had also placed bombs in their own cars, set to explode later to target police and rescue workers. The cafeteria bombs failed to go off. At approximately 11:19 a.m., Eric and Dylan, realizing their main plan had failed, decided to go into the school with their guns. They were wearing long black trench coats, which they used to hide their weapons. They began shooting outside the school's west entrance. Their first victims were students Rachel Scott and Richard Castaldo, who were eating lunch on the grass. Rachel was killed and Richard was seriously injured. They then moved toward the school. Student Daniel Rohrbaugh was shot and killed on the steps outside. They entered the school and moved through the hallway near the cafeteria. They threw small pipe bombs as they walked. They shot at students hiding under tables in the cafeteria, injuring several. Teacher Dave Sanders, who was helping students escape, was shot twice. He later died from his wounds. Eric and Dylan then went to the library on the second floor. Many students were hiding there. Over the next 7 minutes, they killed 10 more students in the library. They shot people who were hiding under desks. They taunted some students, asked them questions, and then shot them. They fired at computers and bookshelves. Eric killed the majority of the victims in the library. One of the students killed was Isaiah Shoels, an African-American student. Witnesses reported the shooters made racist remarks before shooting him. After killing and injuring people in the library, Eric and Dylan left and walked through the school again. They shot out windows at police officers outside. They went back to the cafeteria and shot at the unexploded propane bombs, trying unsuccessfully to set them off. They also exchanged gunfire with police from a doorway. At around 12:08 p.m., Eric and Dylan returned to the library. Most of the living victims had escaped or were pretending to be dead. The two shooters walked to a section of bookshelves. Eric Harris sat on the floor, put the barrel of his shotgun under his chin, and fired, killing himself. Dylan Klebold then knelt down, placed the muzzle of his semi-automatic handgun against his left temple, and fired, killing himself. A small fire from a device they left behind briefly ignited a table. In less than an hour, they had killed 12 students and 1 teacher. 21 other students were injured by gunfire, and several more were hurt while escaping or from shrapnel. The police did not enter the school until after the 2 shooters were dead. The bombs in the cafeteria and the cars were later found and disabled by bomb squads. After Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold died by suicide in the library, police teams began to carefully enter Columbine High School. It was after 12 p.m. Their first job was to secure the building and help the wounded. They found the bodies of the 2 shooters in the library among the victims. At first, the police did not know if there were more attackers. They searched the entire school room by room. This process took hours. During this time, bomb squads found the unexploded propane bomb in the cafeteria and the bombs in Harris's and Klebold's cars in the parking lot. These were safely disabled. The police identified Harris and Klebold as the shooters by late afternoon. They informed their families. Investigators then searched the boys' homes. In Eric Harris's bedroom, they found pipes, wires, bomb-making instructions, and containers of propane. They also found his journal on his computer. In Dylan Klebold's home, they found similar materials and his written journal. The journals detailed their plans, their anger, and their desire to kill and create a massive explosion. Police also found the homemade videos, the basement tapes, in Harris's house. In these tapes, the 2 talked about their motives and their preparation. The investigation focused on how the teenagers got their weapons. Police traced the guns. They learned that Robin Anderson, a classmate, had bought 3 guns for them at a gun show. They also learned that Mark Manes had sold Harris the TC DC-9 handgun. Philip Duran had introduced Manes to Harris. Anderson cooperated with police and was not charged. Manes and Duran were arrested and charged with supplying handguns to minors and other crimes. The police and the FBI studied all the evidence. They concluded that Harris and Klebold had acted alone. There was no larger conspiracy. The main goal of the attack had been to blow up the school with bombs. The shooting was a backup plan when the bombs failed. The investigation showed the attack was planned for nearly a year. The leaders of the investigation decided not to release the basement tapes to the public. They worried other troubled individuals might copy the ideas or see the shooters as heroes. Many lawsuits were filed after the shootings. Families of the victims sued the Harris and Klebold families. They also sued the school district and the suppliers of the guns. In 2001, most of the families agreed to a shared settlement of money. The Harris and Klebold families paid using their homeowners' insurance policies. Mark Manes and Philip Duran also contributed money to the settlement. One family sued separately and received a different settlement in 2003. Criminal justice for the shooters was not possible because they were dead. However, Mark Manes was sentenced to 6 years in prison for providing the handgun to a minor. Philip Duran was sentenced to 4.5 years for his part in getting the gun. The police were criticized for how they handled the situation outside the school while the shooting was happening. An official report later suggested police tactics for active shooters needed to change nationwide. The report said officers should go in immediately to stop the shooters in the future, rather than setting up a perimeter first. In the years that followed, the families of the victims worked to create memorials and support groups. A public memorial was built in a nearby park with a ring of stones for each of the 13 victims. The library where most were killed was torn down and not rebuilt. The school district created new safety policies for schools. The mother of Dylan Klebold, Sue Klebold, later wrote a book and gave talks about mental health, warning about hidden signs of depression and anger in young people. The Columbine attack had a lasting impact. It led to more focus on school security, like locked doors and police officers in schools. It also unfortunately inspired other school shooters who studied the details of the crime. The names Harris and Klebold became known worldwide, often used as a reference point for discussions about violence, bullying, and mental health. The story closed with a community and a nation forever changed by a single hour of violence on a Tuesday in April. Story 5. Raymond Martinez Fernandez was born on December 17, 1914, in Hawaii. His parents were Spanish. Soon after he was born, his family moved across the ocean to live in Bridgeport, Connecticut, in the United States. He grew up there. When he was a teenager, his family sent him to Spain. He went to work on his uncle's farm there. While living in Spain, Raymond met a young local woman named Encarnacion Robles. They got married. Together, they had 4 children. However, Raymond later left his wife and children. He abandoned his family and did not return to take care of them. Raymond then worked on ships. He served in the Spanish Merchant Navy. During World War II, he also did some work for British intelligence services. In 1945, he was on a ship when a heavy hatch fell on his head. This accident caused a serious head injury. He was taken to a hospital to recover. After he left the hospital, Raymond stole some clothing. He was caught for this theft. He was sent to prison for 1 year. In prison, he shared a cell with another man. This cellmate talked to Raymond about voodoo and black magic. Raymond began to believe in these things. He later claimed that black magic gave him a special power to attract and control women. He believed he could make any woman love him. Martha Jewel Beck was born on May 6, 1920, in Milton, Florida. Her name before marriage was Martha Jewel Seabrook. From a young age, Martha was very heavy. Doctors said she had a glandular problem, which made her gain weight easily. Her body also went through puberty very early, when she was still a child. Martha said that when she was young, a terrible thing happened to her. She claimed her brother raped her. She also said that after she told her mother about it, her mother beat her instead of comforting her. As a teenager, she once ran away from home to an uncle's house in another town, but she was found and brought back. After finishing school, Martha studied to become a nurse. However, because of her weight, she had trouble finding a nursing job. Her first job was working for an undertaker, a person who prepares dead bodies for burial. Her job was to prepare female bodies. She did not like this work and soon quit. She then moved to California. In California, she got a job as a nurse in a United States Army hospital. While living there, she became pregnant. The father of the baby did not want to marry her. Martha was alone and pregnant. During this time, It was very shameful for a woman to have a baby without being married. Because of this, she decided to move back to Florida. Back in Florida, Martha told people a story. She said the father of her baby had been a soldier who was killed in the war. People in her town felt very sorry for her. This story was even printed in the local newspaper. After her daughter was born, Martha became pregnant again. This time, the father was a Pensacola bus driver named Alfred Beck. They got married quickly, but the marriage only lasted 6 months before they divorced. Martha had a son from this marriage. Martha was now a single mother with 2 young children. She did not have a job. She spent a lot of time reading romance magazines and novels and watching romantic movies. This was her escape from her difficult life. In 1946, she found a job at the Pensacola Hospital for Children. In 1947, wanting romance and companionship, she decided to place a personal advertisement in a Lonely Hearts column of a newspaper. She hoped to meet a man this way. Raymond Fernandez saw Martha Beck's advertisement in the Lonely Hearts newspaper column. He wrote a letter back to her. They began to exchange many letters. Soon, Raymond traveled from New York to Florida to visit Martha in person. He stayed at her home for a short time. Martha told all her friends and neighbors that she and Raymond were engaged to be married. After his visit, Raymond returned to his apartment in New York City. Martha began making plans to move to New York to be with him. Before she could finish her plans, Martha was suddenly fired from her job at the Children's Hospital. She decided to leave immediately. She packed her belongings, arranged for her 2 young children to be cared for by others, and traveled to New York. She arrived at Raymond Fernandez's apartment without warning. Raymond was surprised to see her, but he let her stay. He enjoyed how she did everything for him and obeyed his every wish. When he learned she had left her children behind to be with him, he saw it as proof of her complete loyalty. He decided to trust her. He confessed to Martha that he was not an honest man. He explained that he made money by meeting women through Lonely Hearts ads. He would trick them into giving him money or valuable gifts by pretending to love them and plan for marriage. Martha was not upset by this confession. Instead, she wanted to be part of his schemes. To show her dedication, she even sent her children to live in a Salvation Army home, so they would not distract her from helping Raymond. Martha Beck became Raymond's partner in crime. She began posing as his sister. This made their female victims feel more safe. If a woman came to Raymond's apartment and saw another woman there, she was less suspicious. Sometimes, Martha would pretend she lived alone and that Raymond was just her visiting brother. This helped lure victims into staying with them. Martha, however, was very jealous. She was in love with Raymond and hated when he was close to other women. She went to great lengths to stop Raymond from having any physical relationship with their targets. When he did have sex with a woman, Martha would become very angry. She would yell and sometimes become violent toward both Raymond and the woman. In early 1949, their crimes turned deadly. They met a 66-year-old woman named Janet Fay through a Lonely Hearts ad. Janet Fay became engaged to Raymond and agreed to move into his apartment in Long Island, New York. One day, Martha Beck found Janet Fay in bed with Raymond. This sent Martha into a rage. She picked up a hammer and hit Janet Fay on the head with it. Janet Fay was hurt, but still alive. Raymond, seeing what had happened, then used his hands to strangle Janet Fay until she died. They needed to hide the body. They put Janet Fay's body in a large trunk. They then moved the trunk to a different apartment they rented in New York City. They buried the trunk under fresh cement in the floor of a basement room. Janet Fay's family knew she had planned to marry Raymond. When she stopped contacting them, they grew worried and suspicious. They reported her missing. Raymond and Martha realized people would be looking for them. They decided to leave New York quickly. They traveled to Michigan, to a suburb of Grand Rapids called Wyoming Township. They had already made contact with another widow through the Lonely Hearts ads. Her name was Delphine Downing. She was 28 years old and had a 2-year-old daughter named Raynell. Raymond and Martha moved into Delphine Downing's house on Byron Center Road. They pretended to be a married couple looking for a new home, with Martha posing as Raymond's sister. On February 28, 1949, Delphine Downing became nervous and upset about something. To calm her down, Raymond gave her some of her own sleeping pills. The pills made Delphine very drowsy, and she fell into a deep sleep. Her little daughter, Raynell, saw her mother was not responding and began to cry loudly. The child's crying made Martha Beck very angry. In a moment of panic and rage, Martha grabbed the little girl and strangled her. The child was badly hurt, but not dead. Raymond thought about the situation. He believed that when Delphine Downing woke up and saw her injured daughter, she would know something was very wrong. She would call the police. To prevent this, Raymond took a gun. He shot Delphine Downing while she was still unconscious from the pills. She died immediately. Raymond and Martha then stayed in Delphine Downing's house for several days. During this time, the little girl, Raynell, was still alive but badly hurt. Her continued crying again enraged Martha Beck. Martha filled a large basin with water. She then drowned the 2-year-old girl in the basin. After both were dead, Raymond dug a hole in the basement of the house. He buried the bodies of Delphine Downing and her daughter there. Neighbors became suspicious because they no longer saw Delphine or her child. The neighbors called the police to report that the family was missing. On March 1, 1949, police officers went to the house to check on Delphine Downing. Raymond and Martha were still there. The police began asking questions. When the police officers arrived at Delphine Downing's house in Michigan, they began to ask Raymond Fernandez and Martha Beck questions. The officers wanted to know where Delphine Downing and her young daughter were. Raymond and Martha gave answers that did not make sense, and their stories kept changing. The officers became very suspicious. They decided to search the house. During the search, the police noticed that a section of the basement floor had dirt that looked recently disturbed. The dirt was loose and appeared to have been dug up and then put back. The officers dug up this area. They found the bodies of Delphine Downing and her 2-year-old daughter, Raynell, buried there. Raymond and Martha were immediately arrested at the house. They were taken to the local police station. At the station, Raymond Fernandez was questioned by detectives. He soon confessed to the murders in Michigan. He also told the police about the murder of Janet Fay in New York. He explained how they had killed her and buried her body in a trunk under cement in a New York basement. Police in New York were contacted. They went to the apartment Raymond described. They broke through the fresh cement and found the trunk with Janet Fay's body inside. The police in Michigan charged Raymond and Martha with the murders of Delphine and Raynell Downing. However, the state of New York had a stronger case and the death penalty, which Michigan did not have at that time for these crimes. New York officials asked for Raymond and Martha to be sent to New York to stand trial. This process is called extradition. Michigan agreed, and both were sent to New York to face trial for the murder of Janet Fay. In New York, Raymond and Martha were put on trial together. The prosecution, the lawyers trying to prove they were guilty, focused only on the murder of Janet Fay. This was because the evidence for that murder was very clear. The prosecution showed how the couple had met Janet Fay through a Lonely Hearts ad. They showed how Janet Fay's body was found in the trunk. Medical experts testified that she died from being strangled and hit on the head. The prosecution also showed letters between Raymond and the victims to prove their scheme. During the trial, Raymond and Martha tried to blame each other. Raymond said Martha was the violent one who killed Janet Fay with the hammer, and he only helped after because he was scared of her. Martha said she loved Raymond so much that she would do anything he told her to do. They both denied any involvement in other murders they were suspected of, possibly up to 20 other cases. The jury, the group of people deciding the case, did not believe their stories. They found both Raymond Fernandez and Martha Beck guilty of first-degree murder. The judge sentenced both of them to death. They were to be executed in the electric chair at Sing Sing prison. Their lawyers appealed the decision, which means they asked higher courts to review the case and the sentence. The appeals process took almost 2 years. All appeals were eventually denied. On March 8, 1951, Raymond Martinez Fernandez and Martha Jewel Beck were executed in the electric chair, one after the other. After the trial, the families of the victims had to live with their loss. The children of Martha Beck, who had been placed in a Salvation Army home, were raised by other families. The story of the crimes became widely known in newspapers, and the couple was called the Lonely Hearts Killers because they found their victims through personal ads. The case closed after their executions. The long investigation and trial provided justice for the known victims and ended the criminal activities of the couple. Story 6. Harvey Lewis Kerrigan was born on May 18, 1927, in North Dakota. His mother was 20 years old and not married when he was born. For the first years of his life, Harvey did not live with his mother. Instead, he lived with his aunt and uncle. They lived in North Dakota and also in Minnesota. This meant Harvey moved between different homes as a young child. When Harvey was 10 years old, he went to live with his mother. Changing homes at this age can be hard for a child. Harvey had problems that other children often do not have. One problem was that he wet his bed. This is called bedwetting. He did this often, even when he was older than the age when most children stop. Harvey also had trouble in school. He found it very difficult to learn and to behave in class. Because of his behavior and his learning troubles, he was sent to a reform school in Mandan, North Dakota. A reform school is a special school for children who have problems or get into trouble. At this school, doctors looked at Harvey. They said he had 2 conditions. One was called childhood chorea, which can cause a person to make sudden, jerky movements. The other was enuresis, which is the medical word for bedwetting. Harvey stayed at the reform school for several years. He did not do well academically, but he remained there until he was considered an adult. He finished his time at the reform school when he was 18 years old. This means he did not graduate from a regular high school. After leaving the reform school at age 18, Harvey needed a job and a direction in life. He decided to join the United States Army. The Army accepted him. The Army sent him far away from North Dakota. He was stationed in Anchorage, Alaska. This was a new place for Harvey, who had spent his whole life in the Midwest. In the Army, he would have followed orders and done the jobs he was assigned. After joining the Army, Harvey Kerrigan was sent to Anchorage, Alaska. On July 31, 1949, he saw a 58-year-old woman named Laura Showalter. He attacked her and tried to force her to have sex with him. This is called attempted rape. During this attack, Laura Showalter was killed. Harvey left her body. He was not caught for this crime immediately. Less than 2 months later, on September 16, 1949, Harvey tried to attack another woman. Her name was Christine Norton. He attempted to rape her as well. This time, he was not successful in killing her. Christine Norton survived the attack. The next day, on September 17th, Harvey was arrested by the police. He was connected to the attack on Christine Norton and also to the killing of Laura Showalter. When questioned by the police, Harvey confessed to killing Laura Showalter. An officer told him that if he confessed, he would not be executed. Because of this promise, Harvey told the police what he had done. He was convicted of first-degree murder for killing Showalter and assault with intent to commit rape for attacking Norton. The court sentenced him to death by hanging. However, in 1951, Harvey was given a new trial for the murder. A higher court ruled that his confession was not legal because the officer had promised no execution in exchange for it. This meant the confession could not be used as evidence. Without this confession, the murder charge was dropped. Harvey did not face punishment for killing Laura Showalter. He still had to serve a 15-year sentence for the assault on Christine Norton. He was sent to prison. In 1952, because he was considered a difficult prisoner, he was transferred to Alcatraz Federal Penitentiary. This was a famous prison known for holding dangerous criminals. He was released on parole in 1960. Parole means he was let out of prison early, but he had to follow certain rules. Harvey did not follow the rules of his parole for long. Only months after his release, he and his brother Clinton were arrested in Minnesota. They were caught trying to break into a building to steal things, which is called burglary. They were convicted of attempted third-degree burglary. Because he broke his parole rules, Harvey was sent back to prison. He served 4 more years at a prison in Leavenworth. He was paroled again on March 2, 1964. Later in 1964, Harvey was in the state of Washington. In November, he was arrested again for burglary. He was found guilty and received a 15-year sentence. He was paroled once more in 1968. He violated his parole rules again within a year and was sent back to prison for another year. After his final release, Harvey began committing more violent crimes. On October 15, 1972, a 19-year-old woman named Laura Leslie Brock was found dead in Washington. She had been hit in the head several times. Someone told the police they saw her get into a truck that looked like Harvey's truck. The police considered Harvey a suspect, but they did not have enough proof to charge him. On May 1, 1973, Harvey placed a help-wanted advertisement in a newspaper for a job at a gas station. A 15-year-old girl named Kathy Sue Miller saw the ad and went to the gas station to ask about the job. Harvey raped her there. He then killed her by hitting her in the head with a hammer. He put her body in a plastic sheet and left it in a remote area. 2 boys found her body months later while they were hiking. The police saw the hammer holes in her skull. Harvey was the main suspect, but again, there was not enough physical evidence to arrest him for this murder. On September 9, 1973, Harvey was in Minnesota. He saw a 13-year-old girl named Jerry Billings who was hitchhiking. Hitchhiking is when a person stands by the road and asks for a free ride from drivers. Harvey picked her up in his vehicle. He then drove to a secluded place, sexually assaulted her, and beat her with a hammer. However, Jerry Billings did not die. After beating her, Harvey let her go. He warned her not to tell anyone what had happened. In May of 1974, Harvey started living with a 29-year-old woman named Eileen Hunley in Minnesota. They lived together for a few months. On August 9, 1974, Eileen Hunley decided to leave Harvey. She moved out. The next day, on August 10th, she disappeared. Her body was found about 5 weeks later. She had been hit in the head very hard, which caused her skull to collapse. She had also been raped with a tree branch. On September 14, 1974, Harvey saw a woman named Gwen Burton in a Sears store parking lot. He forced her into his vehicle. He tore her clothes off, choked her until she almost passed out, and sexually assaulted her with a hammer. After the assault, he drove to a field and left her there. Gwen Burton survived this attack. She was able to walk and find help. On September 18, 1974, Harvey picked up 2 teenage girls named Sally Versoy and Diane Flynn. He forced them to perform sexual acts on him. He hit them when they refused or did not do what he said. He was driving with them when he stopped to get gasoline. While he was busy at the gas pump, Sally Versoy and Diane Flynn saw their chance. They ran away from the vehicle and escaped. On September 20th, 1974, an 18-year-old woman named Catherine Schultz disappeared. She was last seen alive that day. Her body was found the next day in a cornfield. She had been beaten to death with a hammer. Her skull was crushed from the blows. The police arrested Harvey Kerrigan on September 24, 1974. His arrest happened quickly after the attack on Sally Versoy and Diane Flynn, because they escaped and immediately reported him to the police. They were able to describe him and his vehicle. When the police found Harvey, they connected him to the recent disappearance and murder of Catherine Schultz. He was first charged with the crimes against Versoy and Flynn, which were attempted murder and aggravated sodomy. His trial for these charges began in 1975. In court, Harvey Kerrigan did not say he was innocent. Instead, he pleaded insanity. This is a legal defense where a person admits to the actions, but claims they were not mentally responsible. He told the court that God had ordered him to attack and kill women. He said God told him to target whores and harlots. The jury did not believe this defense. They found him guilty of both charges. After this conviction, the court ordered a mental evaluation. A psychiatrist diagnosed Harvey with antisocial personality disorder. This is a condition where a person consistently shows no regard for right and wrong and ignores the rights and feelings of others. Shortly after this trial, Harvey faced another trial for different crimes. He was charged with crimes against Jerry Billings, the 13-year-old hitchhiker he had attacked in 1973. He was found guilty of indecent liberties, sodomy upon a child, and 2 more counts of aggravated sodomy. For all these crimes combined, the judge sentenced him to 60 years in prison. With Harvey already in prison for a long time, investigators then focused on the murder cases. He was formally indicted, which means he was charged by a grand jury, for the murders of Catherine Schultz and Eileen Hunley. For the murder of Catherine Schultz, Harvey Kerrigan decided to plead guilty to the charge of second-degree murder. By pleading guilty, he avoided a trial. The judge sentenced him to an additional 40 years in prison for this murder. The case for the murder of Eileen Hunley went to a full trial. The prosecutors presented their evidence to a new jury. The jury found Harvey Kerrigan guilty of first-degree murder for killing Eileen Hunley. The sentence for this conviction was life in prison. All his sentences were to be served one after the other, ensuring he would never be released. Harvey Kerrigan was sent to the Minnesota Correctional Facility, Oak Park Heights, a high-security prison. He remained in prison for the rest of his life. He died there on March 6, 2023, at the age of 95. Story 7. Joseph Naso was born on January 7, 1934, in Rochester, New York. The details of his childhood and family life during his early years are not widely documented. As a young man, he entered the United States Air Force in the 1950s. This military service was his first significant time away from his home area. After finishing his service, he returned to civilian life. He met a woman and they got married. This marriage lasted for 18 years. However, the relationship ended in divorce. Even after the divorce, Naso continued to visit his ex-wife, who lived in the San Francisco Bay Area in California. The couple had a son together. Later in life, their son developed a serious mental health condition called schizophrenia. In his older years, Naso took on the role of caring for his adult son. In the 1970s, Naso moved to California. He settled in San Francisco, living in a neighborhood called the Mission District. During this time, he took various classes at different colleges in the city. He was interested in photography. Later, in the 1980s, he moved to a town called Piedmont, which is also in the Bay Area. His work life was not steady. He worked as a freelance photographer. This means he did not have a single employer, but took individual photography jobs for different clients. Alongside this, he had a long history of committing small crimes. These were mostly crimes like shoplifting, which means stealing items from stores. He was still committing these petty thefts even when he was in his 70s. Because of his odd and sometimes unsettling behavior, people who knew him gave him a nickname. They called him Crazy Joe. His life involved moving several times. He lived in Sacramento, California, between 1999 and 2003. Then in 2004, he moved to a new state. He packed his belongings and settled in Reno, Nevada. Joseph Naso's crimes involved the murders of several women over many years. The killings followed a similar pattern. He targeted women who were often in vulnerable situations. His first known murder happened in January 1974. The victim was a 19-year-old woman named Charlotte Cook. Details of how he met her, or the exact circumstances of her death, are not fully documented, but her death is connected to him. On May 20th, 1976, a 20-year-old woman named Lynn Ruth Connis was last seen alive in Berkeley, California. Naso met her and later strangled her. He did not rape her. After killing her, he waited until late at night. He then drove her body to a different city and threw it under a bridge to hide it. On January 10th, 1977, the body of an 18-year-old woman named Roxine Ragash was found near Fairfax, California. She had been strangled. Police believed she was killed less than a day before her body was found. She was known to work as a sex worker, which made her a target for Naso. On October 9th, 1977, a 19-year-old woman named Pamela Jean Pam Lamson disappeared. She had gone to Fisherman's Wharf in San Francisco to meet a man who offered to take professional photographs of her. This man was Joseph Naso. She was murdered after this meeting. On August 13, 1978, a highway patrol officer found a body along a road between Crockett and Port Costa, California. The body was decomposed and nude. It was later identified as Carmen Lorraine Colon, a 22-year-old woman. She had been dumped there. On April 1, 1979, a 21-year-old woman named Rebecca Jean Dunn went missing. She had traveled from Las Vegas to San Diego with plans to earn money as a sex worker. Naso encountered her during this time, and she became another victim. In January 1981, the body of a 56-year-old woman named Sherilea Patton washed ashore in Tiburon, California. She had been looking for work. Naso managed the residence where she had lived and had even taken a photograph of her. Police questioned him about her death in 1981, but he gave unclear answers and was not charged. In May 1992, a 38-year-old woman named Sarah Dillon was killed. She was last seen on her way to a concert. Her body was found in or near Nevada County, California. On September 19, 1993, the body of a 38-year-old waitress named Pamela Ruth Parsons was found in Yuba County, California. Naso was living in the area at that time. On August 14, 1994, the body of 31-year-old Tracy Lynn Tafoya was found in Yuba County. Naso had drugged her, raped her, and then strangled her. He left her body near a cemetery. His method was consistent. He would meet women, often those involved in sex work or who were seeking modeling photos. He would then strangle them. After the murders, he would transport their bodies to remote locations and dump them. He also took photographs of his victims, both before and after their deaths. He kept detailed written lists of women's names and locations, which he referred to as his diary or list. The crimes were discovered and solved many years after they happened. The process began in April 2010. At that time, Joseph Naso was living in Reno, Nevada. He was on parole for a petty crime. His parole officer conducted a routine check of his home. During this check, the officer found items that seemed very suspicious. The parole officer found a handwritten list. This list had the names or descriptions of 10 women. Next to each name was a geographical location. These locations matched places where unidentified bodies had been found or where women had gone missing. The parole officer also found many photographs. These photographs showed women, some who appeared unconscious or dead, posed in sexualized ways. Some photographs included parts of mannequins. Because of this disturbing evidence, Naso was immediately arrested for a parole violation. The evidence was sent to police detectives in California. They began to compare the list and the photographs to old, unsolved murder cases. They focused on 4 cases from the 1970s where the victims' bodies had been dumped in remote areas. The victims were Roxane Ragash, Carmen Colon, Pamela Parsons, and Tracy Tafoya. The locations on Naso's list matched the dump sites for these women. Police gathered more physical evidence. In the case of Roxane Ragash, they found DNA evidence on her pantyhose. This DNA was linked to Naso. They also found fibers on her body that matched a carpet in Naso's home at the time. For other cases, the photographic evidence was very strong. Naso had taken pictures of the victims, both before and after their deaths. Some photos showed them in the same clothing they were found in. In April 2011, based on this evidence, Naso was formally charged with the murders of the 4 women. As the investigation continued, prosecutors linked him to 2 more murders, Sherilea Patton and Sarah Dillon. The diary lists he kept were used in court to show his pattern of stalking and planning. His trial began in Marin County, California. During the trial, the prosecutors showed the jury the lists and the photographs. They explained how the evidence connected him to each crime scene. The defense argued that the evidence was not enough, but the jury found the proofs to be strong. On August 20th, 2013, the jury found Joseph Naso guilty of all the murders he was charged with. On November 22nd, 2013, a judge sentenced Joseph Naso to death for his crimes. He was sent to San Quentin State Prison to await execution. Because of his age and the slow pace of the death penalty system in California, he remains on death row. The families of the victims received legal closure, but the crimes committed over decades left a permanent impact. Joseph Naso will likely spend the rest of his life in prison, sentenced to death for his series of murders. Story 8. Israel Keyes was born in Richmond, Utah, on January 7, 1978. He was the second of 10 children in his family. His parents were members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. When Israel was 5 years old, his father decided to leave the church. The family moved to a very remote piece of land near Colville, Washington. They lived in a one-room cabin in the woods. This cabin had no electricity and no running water. The family was very isolated from other people and from normal society. In Colville, the Keyes family began attending a church called the Arkansas. This church followed beliefs known as Christian identity, which included white supremacist ideas. The lifestyle was very simple, similar to that of the Amish. During this time, the family became neighbors with another family whose son, Chavai Kehoe, would later be convicted of murder. The children were homeschooled. Because the cabin was so small, some of the children, including Israel at times, had to sleep in a tent outside. The children were made to work hard. They hunted for food, chopped wood, and worked on nearby farms to help support the family. As he grew older, Israel Keyes became a skilled hunter. He would hunt any animal he could. He told other children at his church that he had skinned a deer while it was still alive. This behavior made the other children avoid him. One girl later said that being near him made my skin crawl. By age 14, he was very tall. He admitted to shooting at his neighbors' houses with a BB gun and to starting fires in the forest. He also began breaking into houses with another boy. This boy stopped spending time with Keyes after he saw him shoot an animal. Around this same time, Keyes' parents found a collection of guns he had stolen from a neighbor. They forced him to return the guns and apologize. He also sold stolen guns to people in the area. His parents also provided shelter to some family friends. The friends' children, along with Israel's sister, saw him torture a cat. He tied the cat to a tree and shot it with a gun. He found this funny. Keyes later said that after this incident, he felt different from everyone else. He decided to keep his actions and thoughts to himself and became more of a loner. His mother started to notice troubling signs in her teenage son. She saw he was listening to different radio stations and reading material she found concerning. As a teenager, Keyes also became a good carpenter. He built his first wooden cabin when he was 16 years old. He worked for a local building contractor from 1995 to 1997. During his teenage years, he kept a journal where he wrote down Bible quotes and listed sins he felt he had committed, like having impure thoughts about his girlfriend. Later, the family moved to Maine for a short time. There, they collected maple sap to make syrup. His mother was very strict about religion. She did not allow the children to learn musical instruments because she believed it was against God. The children had to hide from their parents to watch movies with friends. During this period, Keyes told his parents he no longer believed in God. This led to a big argument. His parents, whom he had always tried to please, were very angry. They told him to leave their home. They also instructed his younger brothers and sisters to never speak to him again. After this, Keyes became interested in Satanism. After his parents told him to leave, Israel Keyes spent time drifting and working odd jobs. In the summer of 1997 or 1998, when he was about 19 or 20 years old, he committed his first known violent crime. He was in Maupin, Oregon, near the Deschutes River. He saw a teenage girl, aged 14 to 18, who was tubing down the river with friends. Keyes hid in the trees and watched her. When she was separated from her friends, he came out of hiding. He threatened her with a knife and then sexually assaulted her violently. He had originally planned to kill her as part of a satanic ritual, but he did not go through with it. He let her go in her river tube. He later said he felt he was too timid at that time and promised himself he would be more violent in the future. In April 1998, Keyes joined the United States Army. He did well in training and was selected for a preliminary course for the Army Rangers. He was stationed at different bases, including time in Egypt. While in the Army, he told another soldier that he would like to kill him. He drank heavily on his time off. In 2001, he was arrested for drunk driving. He received an honorable discharge from the Army in July 2001 and moved to Knee Bay, Washington. Investigators believe he began killing people soon after leaving the military. Keyes developed a very careful method to avoid being caught. He did not have a specific type of victim. He chose people randomly. He would often fly to a city far from his home in Alaska, rent a car, and drive hundreds of miles to a different state to look for a victim. He used cash for everything and kept his mobile phone turned off during these trips. He called these his murder trips. Years before committing a crime in a certain area, he would travel there to bury a murder kit. These kits were waterproof containers hidden in remote places. They contained guns, ammunition, tools, plastic zip ties, garbage bags, and chemicals like Drano, which he planned to use to dispose of bodies. This planning meant he could travel to commit a crime without carrying any weapons on an airplane. One of the murders he confessed to was that of a couple in Essex, Vermont. In 2009, 2 years before the crime, Keyes flew to Chicago, rented a car, and drove to Vermont. He buried a murder kit there. On June 8, 2011, he returned. He broke into the home of Bill and Lorraine Currier late at night. He tied them up with zip ties. He then forced them into their own car and drove them to an abandoned farmhouse he had found earlier. At the farmhouse, he shot and killed Bill Currier. He then sexually assaulted and strangled Lorraine Currier. After the murders, he cleaned the scene. He put their bodies in garbage bags and removed them. Their bodies have never been found. He then retrieved his murder kit, used some of the supplies, and later reburied what was left in a new location in Parrishville, New York. His last known murder was in Anchorage, Alaska, where he was living. On February 1, 2012, he kidnapped Samantha Koenig, an 18-year-old barista. from the coffee kiosk where she worked. He used a gun to force her into his truck. He took her to a shed in the backyard of his house. There, he raped her and then strangled her to death with a rope. He took her debit card and a few personal items. He left her body in the shed. A few days later, he went on a previously planned 2-week cruise with his girlfriend and her daughter. When he returned on February 18th, he sexually assaulted Samantha's dead body. He then tried to make it seem like she was still alive to get ransom money. He applied makeup to her face and used fishing line to sew her eyes open. He propped up her body and took a Polaroid photo of it next to a 4-day-old newspaper. He sent a text message demanding $30,000 in ransom. He then dismembered her body and put the parts into a hole he cut in the ice of a frozen lake north of Anchorage. Keyes also confessed to other crimes during FBI interviews after his arrest. He said that in April 2009, he kidnapped a woman from the East Coast of the United States. He drove her across several state lines to New York State, killed her, and buried her near Tupper Lake. He admitted to robbing several banks in New York and Texas. He also confessed to burglarizing many homes across the country and setting at least one on fire in Texas. He told investigators he had killed a total of 11 people, but he only gave full details about the 3 murders in Vermont and Alaska. He said he killed people in Washington state and disposed of bodies in lakes there. He preferred to strangle his victims because he liked to watch them struggle and lose consciousness. He claimed he did not kill children because he had a young daughter and did not want her to find out about his crimes, but investigators were not sure if this was true. After Samantha Koenig was kidnapped, the police in Anchorage were notified. Keyes had sent a ransom text message demanding $30,000. Some of the ransom money was deposited into Samantha's own bank account. Keyes then began traveling to different states. He used Samantha's debit card to withdraw this ransom money from ATMs. The police tracked these ATM withdrawals. They saw the withdrawals were happening in Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas. This told them the kidnapper was moving across the southwestern United States. The police got surveillance photos from the ATMs. They issued a bulletin to law enforcement in those areas, asking them to look for the car seen in the photos. On March 13, 2012, a Texas state trooper was checking hotel parking lots in Lufkin, Texas, for cars matching the description. He saw a white Ford Focus that looked like the car from the bulletin. The trooper followed the car. He saw the driver, Israel Keyes, driving slightly over the speed limit. This gave him a reason to pull the car over. When the trooper approached the car, he saw stacks of money in plain view. Some of the bills were stained with bright red dye. Bank dye packs explode with colored ink during a robbery, marking the money. The trooper also found Samantha Koenig's cell phone and debit card in the car. Keyes was arrested on the spot. Keyes was taken to jail in Texas. He was later extradited or transported back to Alaska to face federal charges. At first, Keyes lied to the investigators. He said someone had thrown Samantha's phone and card into his open car window, and he did not know who they belonged to. The evidence against him was very strong. The ATM photos showed him using the card. The dye-stained money connected him to a bank robbery. Faced with this evidence, Keyes eventually decided to confess. He told the FBI he had killed Samantha Koenig. He led them to Matanuska Lake, where divers found her dismembered remains. Keyes was charged with kidnapping and murder. To avoid the death penalty, he agreed to cooperate with investigators for a period of time. He was interviewed by the FBI for over 40 hours. During these interviews, he confessed to the murders of Bill and Lorraine Currier in Vermont. He gave details that only the killer would know, which helped police confirm his story. He also confessed to killing a woman from the East Coast in 2009 and burying her in New York, though he did not give her name. He admitted to several bank robberies and burglaries. He told investigators about his method of burying murder kits around the country years in advance. The FBI found two of these caches, one in Alaska and one in New York, exactly where he said they would be. While he was in jail waiting for his trial, Keyes tried to escape. During a routine court hearing on May 23, 2012, he had used wood shavings from a pencil to pick the lock on his handcuffs. He lunged toward the door but was quickly tackled and subdued by U.S. Marshals, who used a taser to stop him. After this, his conditions of confinement were made stricter. However, on the night of December 1, 2012, Keyes committed suicide in his cell. He had secretly kept a single-edged razor blade. He used it to cut his wrists, and then strangled himself with a twisted bedsheet. Under his body, guards found a suicide note. The note did not give any new information about his victims. Instead, it was described as an ode to murder. On the wall under his bed, he had used his own blood to draw 11 skulls and a pentagram. The FBI believes the 11 skulls represent the total number of people he killed. Because Keyes died by suicide, there was no trial and no formal sentencing. The investigation into his crimes continued after his death. The FBI created a detailed public timeline of all his known travels. They asked for help from the public to identify any other possible victims during the times he was traveling. Many unsolved murders and missing persons cases across the country were reviewed to see if they matched his methods. Some cases, like the disappearance of a woman named Deborah Feldman in New Jersey in 2009, are strongly believed to be his work, but have not been officially confirmed. The families of his confirmed victims, like the Kayas and Samantha Koenig, were left without the closure of a trial. The FBI's investigation remains open for any potential unidentified victims, but the man responsible for a series of calculated and random murders across the United States was never brought to a court of justice. Story 9. Dana Sue Armbrust was born in California in December 1957. Her mother, Beverly, had once been a beauty queen and a small-time movie actress. Her father, Russell, was a hairdresser. Dana was their only child. Her parents had a difficult marriage and divorced when Dana was 2 years old. After the divorce, she rarely saw her father. Dana grew up living with her mother. Beverly was very focused on her own looks and could be a strict parent. Dana often felt ignored. She began to act out to get attention. If her mother punished her, Dana would react. She would sometimes steal money from her mother to buy candy. She would also have sudden, violent outbursts. She did not get along with other children at school. Dana did poorly in all her classes. She often skipped school. To get out of class, she would write fake notes from her mother. When the school found out the notes were fake, she was suspended many times. She had a hard time making friends. When Dana was 14 years old, her mother became very sick with breast cancer. Dana watched the nurses in the hospital care for her mother. This experience made Dana decide she wanted to become a nurse. Her mother died in 1975, when Dana was 17. After her mother's death, Dana went to live with her father. This arrangement did not last long. Her father had remarried. Dana's stepmother found drugs in Dana's room. Because of this, Dana was forced to leave her father's house. A few years later, Dana met a man named Rob, who was a skydiving instructor. They began a relationship. Rob helped her go to nursing school. During this time, Dana became a skilled skydiver. She also became pregnant twice while with Rob. Both times, Rob convinced her to end the pregnancies. Dana deeply resented this later. Dana became a nurse in 1981. For several years after that, she had an on and off relationship with a windsurfer named Chris Dodson. She enjoyed sports like windsurfing and golf. She took trips to Hawaii to do these activities. In October 1987, Dana married a man named Tom Gray. Tom had known her since high school and shared her interest in sports. They got married at a nice winery. Not long after the marriage, Dana accumulated a large amount of personal debt. Around this time, she also had a disagreement with her family over money from a relative's will. This caused her to stop talking to them. Dana worked as a nurse in the labor and delivery department of a hospital. She and Tom lived in a gated community called Canyon Lake. They started several small businesses together, all using the name Gray Matter. Their marriage had problems. In early 1993, Dana left Tom and moved in with another man, Jim Wilkins, and Jim's young son, Jason. In June 1993, Dana filed for divorce from Tom Gray. The divorce was not finalized quickly. Dana and Tom had serious financial problems. In September 1993, they filed for bankruptcy to try to stop the bank from taking their house in Canyon Lake. The house was worth less than the amount they owed on it. In November 1993, Dana was fired from her nursing job. The hospital caught her stealing strong painkiller drugs like Demerol for her own use. She was no longer a nurse. After being fired, Dana had no job and a lot of debt. She needed money. Her first known crime happened on Valentine's Day in 1994. Dana wanted to meet with her estranged husband, Tom, but he avoided her. Later that same day, she went to the home of an 86-year-old woman named Norma Davis. Dana knew Norma Davis. Norma was the mother-in-law of Dana's father's wife, Jerry. Jerry helped care for Norma. Dana visited Norma at her condo in the Canyon Lake community. There was no sign of a break-in at the door. This suggests Norma let Dana inside, likely because she recognized her. Once inside, Dana attacked Norma Davis. She used 2 knives. She stabbed one knife into Norma's chest and another into her neck. Norma Davis died. Dana took the woman's Social Security check, which was worth $148. She did not take other valuable items that were in plain sight. She left the check behind as well, possibly because she was in a hurry or was disturbed. A neighbor found Norma's body 2 days later. Dana still needed more money. On February 28, 1994, she went to the home of another elderly woman in Canyon Lake, named June Roberts, who was 66 years old. Dana knocked on the door and asked to borrow a book about controlling drinking problems. June Roberts allowed her into the house. While June Roberts looked for the book, Dana quietly unplugged the telephone cords from the wall. When June returned, Dana used one of the telephone cords to strangle her. June Roberts died. This time, Dana took 2 of the woman's credit cards. After leaving the house, she went to several stores in a shopping center in nearby Temecula. She used June Roberts' credit cards to buy many things. The credit card company noticed the unusual, high-volume spending on June Roberts' account. They called June Roberts' family to report this activity. The family had not known June was missing yet. This phone call was the first clue that something was wrong with June Roberts. On March 10, 1994, Dana went to an antique store. A 58-year-old woman named Dorinda Hawkins was working there alone. Dana bought a picture frame. She then attacked Dorinda Hawkins, using a telephone cord to try to strangle her. However, Dorinda Hawkins was younger and stronger than the other women. She survived the attack. Dana took a small amount of cash from the store's register and from Dorinda's purse before leaving. Because Dorinda survived, she was able to give a description of her attacker to the police. Dana needed money again. On March 16, 1994, she drove to Sun City, a different community. She chose the home of 87-year-old Dora Beebe. Dana watched the house until she saw Dora return home from a doctor's appointment. Dana then went to the door and asked Dora for directions. Dora Beebe invited Dana inside to look at a map. Once inside, Dana attacked and killed Dora Beebe. Dana then took Dora Beebe's credit cards and checkbook. She left the house. Later that day, she used the stolen credit cards to go on another shopping spree. Dora Beebe's boyfriend found her body that evening. The police in different towns were investigating each of these attacks separately. They did not immediately know all the crimes were connected. However, Detective Joseph Greco, who was investigating the Norma Davis and June Roberts murders, began to see similarities. He started to think one person might be responsible for more than one crime. Detective Joseph Greco, working on the murders of Norma Davis and June Roberts, began to connect the cases. The victims were elderly women living in similar communities, and there were no signs of forced entry. He learned from the credit card company about the unusual spending on June Roberts' card after her death. Detective Greco and other officers went to the stores in Temecula where the card was used. They showed a picture of June Roberts to store clerks. The clerks said the person using the card was a younger woman, not an elderly lady. They described the woman in detail. They said she had recently dyed her hair blonde and sometimes had a young boy with her name Jason. Detective Greco stayed in contact with Jerry Armbrust, who was the stepdaughter-in-law of victim Norma Davis. During a visit, he described the suspect from the store clerk's descriptions. Jerry Armbrust became upset. She told Detective Greco that the description sounded exactly like her stepdaughter, Dana Sue Gray. She confirmed Dana had recently dyed her hair blonde, and that Dana was living with her boyfriend and his son, named Jason. This information gave Detective Greco a specific suspect. On March 17, 1994, he wrote a request for a search warrant for Dana's home in Lake Elsinore. A judge approved the warrant. While police were preparing to search the home, they also began watching it. They did not know that just hours earlier, Dana had killed Dora Beebe in Sun City. Officers watching Dana saw her go to a bank and then to stores. They later learned she was using Dora Beebe's credit cards. With this new evidence, Detective Greco and other officers executed the search warrant at Dana's home. They found several important items inside. In a sock drawer, they found credit cards and identification belonging to Dora Beebe. They also found property belonging to June Roberts. Additionally, they found items linked to the surviving victim, Dorinda Hawkins, from the antique store attack. At the house, Detective Greco arrested Dana. She was taken to the police station for questioning. At first, Dana denied knowing anything about the credit cards. When detectives told her they were found in her home, she changed her story. She said she had found the credit cards belonging to June Roberts and Dora Beebe. She claimed she used them because she had an uncontrollable urge to shop. She showed no emotion or concern for the murdered women. The surviving victim, Dorinda Hawkins, was shown a set of photographs by the police. She positively identified Dana as the woman who had attacked her. This was direct evidence linking Dana to one of the crimes. Dana was formally charged with the murders of June Roberts and Dora Beebe and the attempted murder of Dorinda Hawkins. Because of the strength of the evidence, the prosecutor said he would seek the death penalty if the case went to trial. Faced with this possibility, Dana's lawyers negotiated a plea agreement. On September 9, 1998, Dana Sue Gray changed her plea to guilty. She pleaded guilty to the 2 murders and the attempted murder. In return, the prosecutor agreed not to seek the death penalty. As part of the deal, Dana also admitted to the murder of Norma Davis, but she could not be formally charged for it due to the agreement. On October 16, 1998, a judge sentenced Dana Sue Gray to life in prison without the possibility of parole. She was sent to the Central California Women's Facility in Chowchilla. The families of the victims did not have to endure a long trial. Dana Sue Gray remains in prison for the rest of her life. Story 10. Christine Laverne Slaughter was born in the small town of Perry, in northern Florida. Her family was very poor. Her father, Thomas Slaughter, was 65 years old when Christine was born. Her mother, and was only 16 years old. This large age difference caused many problems in the family. Thomas was often too old and tired to work much, and was very young and struggled with being a mother. The family did not have enough money for basic things. Because the family was so poor, Christine did not get the care a young child needs. She did not have toys or books. She did not get much attention from her parents. Doctors later said she did not develop mentally as fast as other children. She was considered to have learning difficulties. She also had a medical condition called epilepsy, which sometimes caused her to have seizures. The arguments between her older father and young mother happened often. They could not afford to take care of Christine properly. Because of the fighting and the poverty, Christine was sent away to live. She spent many years of her childhood living in different orphanages. These were homes for children without parents or whose parents could not care for them. Moving between these homes made her feel unstable and alone. During her time in these orphanages and at home, Christine began to act in cruel ways toward animals. She was especially cruel to cats. She would hurt them. She later said she wanted to test if cats really had 9 lives. To do this, she would make the cats fall from high places. This behavior was a sign of deep emotional problems, but no one got her serious help for it. When Christine was 14 years old, her parents made a decision for her. They forced her to marry a 20-year-old man. Christine was still a child. This marriage was not happy. The couple argued almost every day. The marriage lasted only 6 weeks before it ended in divorce. After the divorce, Christine began to have many health problems. She would complain of being sick very often. Over the next 2 years, she went to the hospital about 50 different times. Doctors would check her, but they could never find anything physically wrong with her. She said she saw things that were not there, like red dots in front of her eyes. She had problems with her menstrual cycle. Because of all these complaints, a doctor decided she was medically incapacitated when she was 16. This meant she was officially seen as someone who could not work or take care of herself normally. Christine needed a way to make money. She was not qualified for any normal job because of her difficulties and her health record. She started to work for people in her community as a babysitter. Neighbors and friends would pay her to watch their young children. This was her main job. Christine's work as a babysitter continued. On February 25, 1980, she was taking care of a 2-year-old girl named Cassidy Johnson in Blountstown, Florida. While the child was in Christine's care, something happened. Cassidy became very ill. Christine took the child to a doctor's office. She told the doctor that Cassidy had passed out and fallen from her crib. The doctor diagnosed Cassidy with encephalitis, which is a brain inflammation. Cassidy was taken to the hospital. She died 3 days later, on February 28th. A medical examiner performed an autopsy on Cassidy's body. The examiner found the real cause of death was blunt force trauma to the skull. This meant a hard hit to the head. The doctor who first saw Cassidy did not believe Christine's story about the crib fall. That doctor wrote a note to the police. The note said the police should investigate Christine's slaughter. However, this note was lost in the police station. Without the note, the police did not investigate further. They closed the case. Christine was not arrested. Shortly after this, Christine moved to a new city called Lakeland, Florida. She found more babysitting work there. In the early summer of 1980, she was watching a 4-year-old boy named Jeffrey Davis. While under her supervision, Jeffrey died. An autopsy was done on Jeffrey. The doctors said he died from myocarditis, which is an inflammation of the heart muscle. This condition is very rarely fatal, but the doctors did not suspect anything else. They believed it was a natural death. Jeffrey's funeral was held 3 days after his death. At the funeral, Christine was asked to watch another child. This child was Jeffrey's 2-year-old cousin named Joseph Spring. Christine agreed. Only a few hours later, while still at the funeral events, Joseph also died. Doctors examined Joseph and said he died from a viral infection. The doctors then thought that maybe the same virus had caused Jeffrey Davis's death as well. Because the doctors believed both deaths were from natural sickness, no one suspected Christine. The police were not called. In July of 1981, Christine moved back to her hometown of Perry, Florida. After the deaths of the children, some people in Lakeland had become uneasy about her. Fewer families asked her to babysit. She needed a new job. She began to work as a housekeeper and nursing assistant for elderly people. One of her clients was a 77-year-old man named William Swindle. On the very first day Christine worked for him, William Swindle died in his kitchen. His death was sudden, but because of his age, people did not think it was suspicious. No autopsy was ordered to look for another cause. Later that same year, in the fall, a child in Christine's own family died. Christine's half-sister had an 8-month-old baby girl named Jennifer Daniels. One day, the half-sister went into a supermarket. She left her baby with Christine for a few moments. The baby was sitting in Christine's car. During those few moments, the baby stopped breathing. Jennifer Daniels was pronounced dead. Doctors suspected the cause was sudden infant death syndrome, which is the unexplained death of a sleeping baby. Again, no one suspected Christine had done anything wrong. The final child's death was different. On July 2nd, 1982, Christine was babysitting a 10-week-old boy named Travis Coleman in Blountstown, Florida. The baby died while with her. This time, the medical examiners did a very careful autopsy. They found clear internal injuries. These injuries could only have been caused by someone suffocating the baby, which means preventing him from breathing. The police were called immediately to investigate a probable murder. The police located Christine Slaughter and asked her about Travis Coleman's death. During the police interview, Christine confessed. She said she had heard voices in her head. The voices told her, "Kill the baby." She said she had suffocated Travis Coleman with a pillow or a blanket. She then also confessed to killing 2 other children, Cassidy Johnson and Jennifer Daniels. She admitted she used the same method of suffocation on them. After Christine confessed to the police, the investigation moved quickly. The police first focused on the death of Travis Coleman, which had prompted the new autopsy. Christine's detailed confession gave them the facts they needed. She explained how she had used a blanket and a pillow to suffocate the babies. The police then reopened the cases of Cassidy Johnson and Jennifer Daniels based on her confession. They located the medical files and the old doctor's note about Cassidy Johnson that had been lost. The note confirmed the original doctor's suspicion, which matched Christine's new confession. Christine was formally charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder for the deaths of Cassidy Johnson, Jennifer Daniels, and Travis Coleman. The police did not have enough physical evidence to charge her in the deaths of Jeffrey Davis, Joseph Spring, or William Swindle. Without a confession for those cases, and with the original doctor's reports listing natural causes, the district attorney decided to only pursue the 3 cases where Christine had confessed. Because Christine had confessed and agreed to plead guilty, her case did not go to a full trial with a jury. Instead, there was a sentencing hearing in December of 1982. In the hearing, the judge reviewed the confessions, the autopsy reports, and statements from the families of the victims. The families spoke about their grief and loss. Christine's lawyer argued that her mental limitations and history of hearing voices should be considered. The judge sentenced Christine Laverne Slaughter to life in prison for each of the 3 murders. The sentences were to be served at the same time, meaning 1 life sentence. Her confession and guilty plea were the main reasons she did not receive the death penalty. The state of Florida could have asked for execution, but they accepted the life sentence in exchange for her plea. Christine was sent to the Lowell Correctional Institution, a prison for women in Ocala, Florida. In prison, she was evaluated by mental health professionals. They confirmed she had significant intellectual problems and a history of hallucinations. She was given routine jobs to do inside the prison. After serving 25 years, Christine became eligible for a parole hearing. Parole is when a prison review board decides if an inmate can be released early. Her first parole hearing was in November 2017. The board invited statements from the victims' families. Family members of the children she killed wrote letters and gave statements against her release. They said her crimes were too terrible and that she should never be free. No one spoke in support of Christine at the hearing. The parole board reviewed her prison record and the facts of her crimes. They decided to deny her release. She was to remain in prison. The parole board set the date for her next hearing for the year 2024. She remains incarcerated at Lowell Correctional Institution. The victims' families continue to live with the loss of their children, and they monitor the parole process to argue against her release. Christine Laverne Slaughter will have another chance to ask for her freedom in 2024, but she remains a prisoner serving a life sentence for the murders of 3 children.